Hello everyone and welcome to Kiki Crochet. In this video tutorial we're going to learn how to crochet step by step this beautiful elf hat. I'm making this for my daughter and she's 7 years old and her head circumference is 54 centimeters. Now if you prefer you can follow all the steps that I'm making for the rib stitch and for the rest of the hat, but you can start with a very smaller chain and you can make this a Christmas ornament. Now let's go ahead and see the yarn that I'm going to use and how to crochet our hat. The yarn that I'm using is Alize Extra, which is a lightweight yarn, and I'm going to crochet with a 4mm crochet hook. Let's go ahead and see how to start our elf hat. I'm going to start with the green yarn and I'm going to start from the bottom going upwards, and I'm going to make the rib stitch in the beginning with the green yarn. And then when we finish the rib stitch, from there on we're going to continue with red and white. So I've already started with my chain and I have worked a total of 75 chains. Now the rule on how many chains you need to start is you want the total length of your chain to be 4 centimeters smaller than the head circumference. My daughter's head circumference is 54 centimeters, so the length of my chain is 50 centimeters. Now you do not want to crochet too tight or too loose. You want to have a medium strength as you crochet to have the correct measurement on your chains. Okay, so I've worked 75 chains and we want the beginning chain to be 4 centimeters smaller than the head circumference. Now very carefully, without your chain, be aware that your chain doesn't twist. Okay, put your hook in the very last chain and work a slip stitch. Okay, so slip stitch and chain 1. So we are going to create the rib stitch, and what I want to do is I want to crochet 1 double crochet in every chain for a total of 75 double crochet. So starting from your first stitch, one, next one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and continue up until you have 75 double crochet. I've completed row 1 with a total of 75 double crochet. Now put your hook in the first stitch for this row and work a slip stitch and chain 1. What I want to do now is I want to create a row of front posts and back post double crochet. So the first stitch I want it to be a front post, so I'm going to put my hook on the right side of the stitch from the front to the back to the front again on the left side, and I'm going to work a double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a back post double crochet. So I'm going to put my hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch to the back again on the left side, and I'm going to work a back post double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a front post, so I'm going to put my hook on the right side of the stitch from the front to the back to the front again on the left side, so I'm pulling outwards my stitch and I'm going to work a double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a back post double crochet, so I'm going to put my hook from the back to the front on the right side to the back again on the left side, so I'm pulling backwards my stitch and I'm going to work a double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. So I'm going to put my hook from the front to the back on the right side, to the front again on the left side, and I'm going to work a double crochet. So keep repeating this pattern. Work one back post now, then one front post, back post, front post, up until you finish your row. So every time we want to work a front post double crochet, put your hook on the right side from the front to the back and to the front again on the left side of the stitch, and pull outwards your double crochet. When you're working your back post double crochet, put your hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch, to the back again on the left side, so you're pulling backwards your stitches. Okay, so go ahead and finish the row with one front post and one back post double crochet. I've completed working row number 2, and my last stitch was a back post double crochet. Now I'm going to put my hook in the first stitch for this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch and a chain 1. Now I'm going to start row number 3, in which I want to keep the same direction of the stitches. What this means is that since I started with a front post on the previous row, I want to start with a front post on this row as well. So I'm going to put my hook from the front to the back on the right side of the stitch, to the front again on the left side, and I'm going to work a front post double crochet. The next stitch is a back post. So again, in this row I want to work a back post, but because the back post double crochet are not that visible, you can just bring up this stitch so you can see it better, and put your hook from the back to the front on the right side, to the back again on the left side, and work a back post double crochet. Next stitch is a front post double crochet. The next stitch is a back post double crochet. Next stitch is a front post double crochet. So you want to keep the same pattern, okay? So keep the same pattern up until you finish the row, and since I finished with a back post in the previous row, that means that I'm going to have to finish with a back post in this row as well. I've completed row number 3, so I'm going to put my hook in the first double crochet for this row. I'm going to work a slip stitch and a chain 1. So now I'm going to work the 4th and last row for the rib stitch in the beginning, and I want to keep the same pattern. So the first stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. Next stitch is going to be a back post. Next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. Next stitch is going to be a back post. So I want to keep again the same direction of the stitches. So since I finished with a back post double crochet in the previous rows, I want to finish with a back post double crochet in this row as well. I've completed this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch in the beginning in the first stitch for this row, and a chain 1. Now, because I think that my rib stitch is a little thin, I'm going to go ahead and work one more row of this pattern. So again, I'm going to start by working a front post double crochet and a back post double crochet in the next stitch. Front post double crochet in the next one. Back post double crochet in the next stitch. So keep working again the same pattern up until you finish the row, where again in my last stitch I'm going to have to finish up with a back post double crochet, as I've done in the previous rows as well. I've completed the 5th row for the rib stitch, and I've completed my last stitch, which was the back post double crochet. Now if you have an odd number of stitches, as I do, follow the step that I'm going to do right now. If you have even number of stitches, skip this step and start following me when I'm going to add my new color. Okay, so if you have an odd number of stitches, as I do, I have 75 stitches, follow the step that I'm going to do right away. Frog your last stitch and go ahead and work a slip stitch in the first double crochet for this row. So now I have a total of 74 double crochet, and this is going to help me because in the rows that are going to follow, I'm going to have to work 2 decreases on every row to make it to make my hat triangular. So if I have an odd number of stitches, I'm going to get confused. So I want to have an even number so my pattern works out easier. So now everyone follow the steps that I'm going to do now from here on. So I'm going to attach my white yarn. So I've worked a slip stitch. Do not chain 1. I'm on my slip stitch. Okay, grab the white yarn and pull it through the loop. Tighten up your green loop and chain 1 with your white yarn. Now go ahead and work 1 double crochet in every row for a total of 74 in every stitch, 1 double crochet in every stitch for a total of 74 double crochet. And from now on I'm crocheting regular in the stitches, no more front posts or back posts. So starting from the first stitch, okay, and the first stitch is the hole that's on the top left of the first front post that I have over here, because the hole that belongs to each stitch is the one that's on the top left. So this is the front post, the first stitch that I was doing. So this is the first stitch where I'm going to put my hook into. So 1, next stitch, 2, next one, 3, 4, 5, 6, and keep crocheting up until you have 74 double crochet. I've completed crocheting around with a total of 74 stitches. So put your hook in the first double crochet for this row, slip stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. Now from here on, in every new row that we're going to be starting, we're going to be turning our work, so this way we're going to have a straight scheme up until the end of our head. If you do not turn your work and you keep crocheting on the good side of your crochet of your project, you're going to have a diagonal scheme which is going to look very bad in the end. Okay, so make sure that you turn your work in every row that you complete. So now again, row number 2 after the ribbed stitch is again a row of 1 double crochet in every stitch for a total of 74 stitches, starting from the first stitch, 1, next one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and keep crocheting up until you have your 74 stitches around. I've worked my 74 double crochet. Put your hook in the first stitch and work a slip stitch. Do not chain 1. From here on we're going to be working 2 rows of white yarn, 2 rows of red, 2 rows of white yarn, and 2 rows of red. So in every 2 rows we're going to be changing our yarn. So I have my slip stitch. Take your red yarn and attach. Pull it through the loop and chain 1 and turn your work. Okay, so from here on, after the rib stitch, we made 2 rows of 1 double crochet in every stitch. From here on, in every row, up until we're left with 10 stitches, we're going to be working a decrease in every row. We're going to be working a total of 2 decreases. So this way, we're going to have a triangular scarf, a triangular hat in the end. So what we want to do is I have a total of 74 stitches. Okay, I want to separate my head into 2 equal pieces. So this way I want to make a decrease in the middle and a decrease in the end of my head, so I have a triangular result in the end. So if I divide 74 by 2, because I want to have my head in 2 equal pieces, I have a result of 37. So I have the first half of my head is 37 and the other half is another 37. So 37 plus 37 is 74, right? So what this means is that when I want to make my decrease, the stitches that I want to work, the 2 stitches together, I am going to work together stitch number 36 and stitch number 37. We're going to work them together. Then again, I'm going to start working 1 double crochet in every stitch up until I reach stitch number 36 and stitch number 37, in which again I'm going to work them together. Okay, so I'm going to start with 1 double crochet in every stitch, and I'm working, what I'm really doing is I'm working a decrease in the middle and in the end of my hat in every single row up until I'm left with 10 stitches. So let's go ahead and see how we're going to do that. So I've attached my new color, and what I'm doing, I'm not going to be cutting my yarn in every row. I'm going to be bringing up my new color and continuing from there on, okay? So I've chained 1 and start working 1 double crochet in every stitch, starting from your first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and keep working 1 double crochet in every stitch up until you reach your 35th stitch. Once I have my 35 double crochet, I'm going to turn my video back on and see how to work the decrease together. I've worked up until stitch number 35. Now I'm going to work together stitch number 36 and stitch number 37. So wrap the yarn around once and put your hook in the next stitch. Grab the yarn, pull through 2. Wrap the yarn around once, put your hook in stitch number 37. Grab the yarn, pull through 2. So I'm working together those 2 double crochet, and I have 3 loops on my hook. Grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops. So I've worked a total of 35 double crochet up until here, and those 2 stitches, they just became 1. So from the beginning up until here, I have a total of 36 stitches now. Okay, so again, starting to count from 1 from the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, continue working 1 double crochet in every stitch up until again you have 35 double crochet. So stitch number 36 and number 37 we're going to work together. So this means that they're going to be the last 2 double crochet for this row. I'm almost done with my row, and I'm left with the last 2 stitches, which is the 36th and 37th stitch of the row. So put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, wrap the yarn around once, put your hook in the last stitch for this row, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So we're crocheting together 2 stitches, and we have 3 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops. Now put both of your yarns on the inside, because this is the right side and this is the wrong side of our work. Okay, and put your hook in the first double crochet for this row and work a slip stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. So let's see what we just did in this row. So we had a total of 37 stitches on the first half and 37 stitches on the second half of our work. We crocheted together stitch number 36 and number 37, so those 2 stitches became 1. So what I really did is I subtracted 1 stitch on this half. I worked stitch in the end again number 36 and number 37, so those 2 stitches became 1. So what I'm left with is now 36 stitches on the first half of my work and 36 stitches on the second half. So that's how it's going to be up until we finish working decreases. 36, then 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, and so on. So since we're left with 36 stitches on the one side and 36 on the other side, and this happens because those two stitches, they become one. So I subtract 1 from 37 and I have 36 stitches. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch up until I reach stitch number 34, because stitch number 35 and 36 I'm going to work together, and in the second half again stitch number 35 and 36 I'm going to work together. Okay, so this is going to be my decrease. So this is the middle, and this is going to be the decrease in the end of the row. Okay, so I have already turned my work and start crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch up until you have 34 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and when I have my 34 stitches, I'm going to turn my video back on. I've reached stitch number 34, and now we're going to work the next 2 stitches together. Wrap the yarn around once and put your hook in stitch number 35. Grab the yarn, pull through 2. Grab the yarn, put your hook in stitch number 36. Grab the yarn, pull through 2. So we're going to work together 2 stitches, and I have 3 loops on my hook. Grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops. Now I'm going to start crocheting from number 1 again up until I reach stitch number 34, and then we're going to work together stitch number 35 and number 36. Now, if you want to know, well, if you're crocheting correctly, every time that we start the new row, your first stitch is going to be on top of the decrease that you did on the previous row. And again, now starting from number 1, my first stitch is on the 2 stitches that I worked together on the previous row. So this is my first stitch. 1. Let me do that over. Okay, so 1, 2, and keep crocheting up until you reach stitch number 34. I've reached up to stitch number 34, so now we're going to work stitches 35 and 36 together again. So put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, wrap the yarn around once, put your hook in the last stitch of the row, the 36th stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So again, we're crocheting together 2 stitches, and we have 3 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops, and put your hook in the first stitch of this row and work a slip stitch. Do not chain 1, because we're going to bring up the new color. Now, because this is the wrong side of my work, it doesn't matter if you're seeing the white scheme on the inside of the yarns that we're going to be bringing up, okay? But if you do not want to have that result, you can cut your yarn in every row that we finish with each color and start over again. So then you'll have to weave in, you'll have to weave in many yarns in the end. So in order to avoid having to weave in so many yarns, I'm using this step over here. So I'm bringing up my new color, pull it through the loop, tighten up the red yarn, the red loop, turn your work, and chain 1. So what we're going to do now, so let's see what we did in the previous run, what we're going to do now. We had a total of 36 stitches, and we worked together stitch number 35 and stitch number 36. So that means that those 2 stitches, they became 1. Those 2 stitches, they became 1 as well. So now from 36 stitches in each half, in each of the 2 halves, I'm going to have 35 stitches now on the one half of my work, and 35 stitches on the second half. So what this means is that I'm going to have to work together, crochet together, stitch number 34 and stitch number 35. Same here, stitch number 34 and stitch number 35. So I'm starting my row by crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch up until I reach stitch number 33. I'm working 34 and 35 together, and then I'm starting over again to count from 1 and stitch number 34 and 35, which are the last 2 stitches of the row. Again, we're going to work them together. Okay? So I'm starting to count. So if you recall, in the previous row I mentioned that if we're doing correctly our decreases, in the first stitch right over here, it's the stitch that in the previous row we worked the 2 stitches together. So I'm starting from this stitch, my first double crochet for the row. 1, 2, 3, and keep crocheting up until you reach the 33rd stitch. I've reached my 33rd stitch, and now the 34th and 35th, we're going to crochet them together. So put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2. We have 3 loops on our hook, grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops. Now we're going to start counting all over again from number 1 and see how again our first stitch is the 2 stitches that we worked together in the previous row. So starting from here, again count. Oops. One, 2, 3, and keep crocheting again up until you reach the 33rd stitch, where again the last 2 stitches of the row, 34 and 35, we're going to work them together. I'm almost done with my row. I've reached again my 33rd stitch, so I'm going to work stitch number 34 and number 35 together. So put your hook in the 34th stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops. Now I'm going to work a slip stitch, and I'm making sure, because this is the right side and this is the wrong side, I'm making sure that as I work my slip stitch, I have both of the yarns on the inside of my work. So slip stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. And the reason that I want to have both yarns on the inside, especially this one, is that when I turn to the new row, as I bring up the yarn, again, the yarn, the skein, this right here is on the inside of my head, so it's not visible on the outside. Okay, so now we're gonna start the next row, and what we did in this row, we had 35 stitches. We worked the 34th and 35th together. So this means that in each of the 2 halves of our head, we're subtracting 1 stitch, because we're working 2 together and we're left with only 1 every time. Okay, so out of the 35 stitches, now I'm left with 34 on this side, and we worked 34 and 35 together, so I'm left with 34 stitches on the other half of my work as well. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be working stitch number 33 and number 34 together, and here as well we're going to work together stitch number 33 and number 34. So I'm working 1 stitch in every stitch up until the 32nd double crochet, then 33 and 34 are worked together, and here as well. So start crocheting. 1, 2, 3, up until you reach your 32nd stitch, and then we're going to work the decrease together again. I've worked up to my 32nd stitch, and now I have my 33rd and 34th, which I'm going to work together. So put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2 loops, wrap the yarn around once, put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So we're working together 2 stitches, and we have 3 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops. Now start counting from 1 all over again. 1, 2, and keep crocheting again up until you reach your 32nd stitch, and then the last 2, number 33 and 34, are going to be worked together. I'm almost done with my row. I'm left with my last 2 stitches, stitch number 32 and stitch number 33 and stitch number 34. So put your hook in the 33rd stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, put your hook in the last stitch for this row, number 34, stitch number 34, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So we're working together 2 stitches, and we have 3 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn, pull through all of those 3 loops, and put your hook in the first double crochet for this row and work a slip stitch. Do not chain 1 because we're going to change colors. Bring up the red yarn and pull it through the loop, tighten up the white loop, chain 1, and turn your work. So from here on, we are going to work off camera, and what we're going to be doing is, well, what we just did is we had 34 stitches on the first half. We worked 33 and 34 together, so we're left with 33 stitches on the one side. Again, here we had 34 stitches, we worked 33 and 34 together, so we're left with 33 stitches on the second half as well. So now that we have 33 stitches, we want to crochet together stitch number 32 and stitch number 33. Same here, we want to work together stitch number 32 and stitch number 33. So you're crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch up until you reach stitch number 31, 32 and 33 you crochet together. Then you start crocheting all over again, counting from number 1, and the last 2 stitches of the row, which are 32 and 33, you're going to work them together. So we're following those steps for every row, okay, and we continue crocheting the decreases up until we're left with a total of 10 double crochet. So I'm left with 5 on this side and 5 double crochet on the second half. When I reach at this point, I'm going to turn my video back on and see how to continue from there on. So in every new row that you start, you have 1 less stitch on each part that you're making your decreases. So here we have 32. After we finish this row, we have 33. When we finish this row, we're going to have 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, and so on, up until you're left with 5 stitches on the one side. Here again, we have 33, then 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, up until you have 5 stitches on this side as well. Make sure that you're changing your colors in every 2 rows, as we're doing here, to white, to red, to white, to red, and so on, up until you reach your 5 double crochet, a total of 10 stitches in the whole row, okay? So when I reach that point, I'm going to turn my video back on and see how to continue our elf hat from there on. I've completed crocheting, and I'm left with my 10 double crochet up here. So that means that I did 4 double crochet, decrease, 4 double crochet, and decrease. That means that I have a total of 10 stitches around my circle right here now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crochet a few rows by changing colors in every 2 rows. I'm still keeping the pattern of the color changing, and I'm going to crochet with a total of 10 stitches in every row. So I'm not working decreases anymore. What I want to do is I want to make a long tube up here to finish off my elf hat. So once I finish crocheting my the tube, I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm going to mention how many rows I did with the how many rows I did for the tube and what's the total length of our head, and then we're gonna see how to do the pom-pom in the end. So we're not working any decreases anymore, only 10 double crochet in every row, and I have a total of 34 rows after the rib stitch. With the rib stitch I have a total of 39, and the total length so far of our elf hat is 41 centimeters. So go ahead and keep the color changing pattern and work a few more rows with 10 double crochet in every stitch. I've completed crocheting, and this is where I turned my video back on. So after that I have 2, 4, 6, 8 and 3 rows of white in the end, and the reason that I made 3 rows of white in the end is because I'm going to add a pom-pom, so I'm going to lose my last row. So because I want to have a neat pattern with all the 2 rows of each color to be showing, I made an extra row of white up here because the pom-pom is going to be big and I'm going to lose the last row up here. So in order to finish off, I've worked a slip stitch, a chain 1, cut the yarn, pull the loop and tighten up. So this is how our elf hat looks at this point. Now we're going to make the pom-pom, and I'm using my hairpin to create my pom-poms, and I'm going to make it with the green color because I have green in the beginning as well. If you want to change the colors, you can do that. I just wanted to have green on the bottom and the top of the elf hat. So in order to make your pom-pom, you can also wrap the yarn around your hand, and you can also use a lid from a container or something, so you can wrap around it many times. So I'm going to wrap the yarn around my hairpin many times because I want my pom-pom to be nice and thick. Okay, so once I finish wrapping around the yarn, I'm going to turn the video back on and see how to finish our pom-pom. I've wrapped my yarn many times around my hairpin, and this is how thick I made it. So now I'm going to cut the yarn down here, and I'm going to cut a pretty long piece to tie it in the middle, and I'm using double strand because this yarn is lightweight, it's very thin, and if I tie it around tightly, I'm afraid it's going to break. So I'm using 2 strands, and I cut the yarn long because I'm going to use this yarn to sew it on the hat. So I want to tie right in the center. Okay, and make a knot. And again, now take it through the back. And through the front again. Okay, so now I'm going to take the loops out of my hairpin. Make sure you don't cut these 2 strings of yarn because we're going to use to sew around our hat. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut through all of the loops. So go around and make sure you cut all the loops. So what you can do now, you can go ahead and cut around the fringes and make them all symmetrical around. I'm going to leave it as it is because I want the pom-pom of the elf hat to be kind of crazy, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the pom-pom, and with the two longer strings, I'm going to start sewing around up here. So attach, and now we want to be going through the pom-pom and through each stitch around right here in the last row of the double crochet that we made, and we want to make sure that all the stitch all around our pom-pom is up here holding steady. See how we're sewing in the last row? See how you're losing the third row of white double crochet that we made? That's why we're making an extra row in the end, and instead of 2 we made 3. Okay, so I want to be going through the center of the pom-pom and through each stitch around, if possible, on our hat. What I'm going to do now to finish off, I'm going to make a knot with the 2 ends that I used to sew around the pom-pom. Okay, and in order to avoid weaving in, I'm going to cut both of those ends in the same length that the fringes on my pom-pom have. Okay, and our elf hat is ready. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, and if you like the video, please press like and leave a comment. Thanks again, and I wish everyone a happy holiday. Bye bye!